Literally a guy's heart is removed from his body. So we're starting off strong. I fell in love with Orwell. I fell in love with Steinbeck. But yeah, Hemingway just he wasn't my dude. I was like, surely she's not being serious. This cannot be what this book is about. Hello friends, welcome back to another video. We are going to run through some recent reads, all of the books that I'm trying to slide in just at this last couple of weeks basically of the year. Say hi. Say hi. I have a mix of physical, but I think mostly audio, possibly. I'm hoping that this little microphone on my phone is going to cancel out the echoiness in this room and the heater being on because it is a very cold day outside. There's something in my coffee, but we're just going to ignore it. We're going to ignore it. I'm going to go in order. So I never did a November books video, so it's going to be kind of like a November first half of December kind of video. Masters of Death was the first one that I read because Olivie, I always say Olivie. I think it's supposed to be Olivie because like Olivia, but without the A. I think I've been saying it wrong this whole time. Anyway, trying to work through her oeuvre. I loved the Atlas 6 trilogy, thought it was great. And so I was like, well, let me go read her backlist. With what I'm reading so far of the backlist, the Atlas 6 is still her best. So maybe Gifted and Talented will change my mind. It's on the way. I ordered it from Thrift Books, so it will be here eventually. But this is supposed to be following two main characters, Viola, who is a vampire, and Fox, who is a medium. And then it's basically like a game that immortals play, and there's lots of different immortal characters in the book. Anyway, so we have a ghost as well. I really liked the ghost character. Thomas was his name, or Tom, if I remember right. This was like early November, so I'm not as clear on the details anymore. Character is kind of what she is known for. Character, dialogue, just the interaction between characters. Like that really is kind of like what she's known for the most, I feel like. This fell a little bit flat for me. It was just kind of meandering. It was a little bit all over the place. That has kind of come to the fore. That just seems to be the way of things with a lot of her books, is that she does have this very kind of meandering sort of plot line. There's usually not a ton of plot. There is some plot for sure. It has some stuff going on, but definitely the main thing is just how the characters are interacting with each other. I want to say it's like the devil himself is a character in this, if I remember right. They're the archangels. They basically exist in our world alongside humans, but obviously their day-to-day looks a little bit different. There is a really funny scene where there's like an AA meeting. It's like AA, but it's like for supernatural creatures and demons trying to live in the real world alongside humans, and it's like a place where they can all get together and like share how difficult that is. It's the main issue that I had that made me only give this like a 3-star was it's very unserious. And from the title and from the description, I definitely thought it was going to be a little bit more intense. Like Atlas 6, that trilogy has more of a serious kind of intense feel to it, and this was so silly. Even like the archangels were like joking with each other. It was just that's why they call it a romp. Like Booklist called it a romp. Like all the character dialogue was very flippant, and that kind of contrasted and like rubbed against, in a weird way, the actual like content of the book, because it's supposed to be like a battle for souls. I'm not going to get too much into like the actual plot just so that I don't ruin anything for you, but I was like, why is everybody so silly? Like, why are we just all acting so silly? It was overlong, which is again something I'm kind of discovering with her books. Like, it was good, but her writing is really wordy, so I just really have to be in the mood for it. I don't know that I was quite in the mood. I think in the beginning I was, but because her writing style is so like exhausting, to be honest, not always in a bad way, but sometimes in a bad way, that I was listening. I ended up finishing it on Spotify using the audiobook to finish it out. on like 2 times speed. Local Heavens was actually one that I've been looking forward to for a long, long time. Look at this cover, by the way. Ignore the cat hair floating in the air. This gorgeous cyberpunk retelling of The Great Gatsby, Local Heavens by K.M. Fajardo. I have been watching this girl on YouTube for a long, long time, for maybe years. Watching her write this and watching this book come into fruition has just been like the coolest experience. That's what I'm trying to do with Project Souls. I just uploaded a video last week. I'm almost finished editing through draft 1, so I'm getting there. And I would love for this to happen to me one day. So it's just the coolest experience to basically just watch someone's process and then actually get to hold the book in your hand is just like the coolest thing. I moved you slightly because we have weird shadows coming in from the tree and the sun. I'm hoping maybe the sun actually comes out. And so yes, I have been looking forward to this one for a long time. Pre-ordered, finally came in, and it's so nice. First of all, just the cover and like the thickness of the pages, like the actual physical reading experience was really nice. I knew there was also an audiobook as well. And so I did kind of like randomly, like if I couldn't hold the physical book, if I was like driving, like my commute to work, I would switch over to the audiobook. So we have familiar characters, but in this like chrome coated world. Love that little description that I put for myself in my notes. Think Blade Runner, but with that like 1920s feel. I don't really know how she blended those two genres together so seamlessly, but it does work. Sounds kind of weird at first, and I remember thinking, how's she gonna do that? Like, I definitely want to read this book, but like, how is it gonna read? But she does it so well. She actually did really capture that style. Now, to be honest, I was not a big fan of the actual Great Gatsby in school. When we read it, I was more like, Hemingway was never my guy. Orwell. I fell in love with Orwell. I fell in love with Steinbeck. But yeah, Hemingway just wasn't really, he wasn't my dude. But this was awesome because I do love sci-fi. So it was a really cool, it was just so cool, like a little medley of genres. So Nick Carraway is a hacker, and that kind of brings in this sort of, there's a lot of like Matrix-esque kind of scenes. It was really neat. I loved the tech, but the thing that is so scary and that she made feel so real was there are little in-between chapters, like these little asides. You're looking at a file in like a loan office, like someone trying to get a loan, and it gives you a peek into the economy as it is in 2075 in New York City. And it's absolutely terrifying, and it's actually not that crazy to imagine because of the way that the economy is and inflation. It's really not that hard to like stretch your imagination and extrapolate it into something like this, even though the numbers in here and like reading the little snippets about like the economy seems so insane. What's sad is it's like actually not that hard to imagine. Like it almost feels like one of those books that's like a warning or like a cautionary tale. I highly recommend, even if you are not a Great Gatsby fan, because I myself was not a big Great Gatsby fan and still really loved this. Then we have a DNF, Cahokia Jazz. This was a one that I just, it's sort of like an alternative 1920s noir murder mystery kind of thing. The writing was excellent, and I was really excited. I've been looking forward to it a long time. I literally went to Cahokia in Illinois. It's like right on the border. There was a whole civilization there, like pre-Columbian civilization. It's one of the largest empires, like Native American empires. A lot of their mounds still exist. My boyfriend and I hiked up to Monk's Mound, which is the largest one. Listening to that book, like as we were driving through on the way back from our like fall break trip. I don't know, there was just something about this. Let me just read through my notes. I said, gory murder mystery in the style of an Aztec human sacrifice. So that happens right at the beginning. There's a sacrifice. Literally a guy's heart is removed from his body. So we're starting off strong. The Tacoma are one of the dominant tribes that is mentioned. Cahokia has kind of become like a melting pot. I was hoping, and this is kind of where I feel like books are not always advertised the way that they should be. I was hoping that the native tribes were going to have more of an impact on the story, or more of a, like, the story was going to focus more on those tribes, and I felt like that was kind of lacking a little bit. It started to read differently than it was advertised to me. Maybe that's a me problem. Some of the characters feel like stereotypes, too many to care about any of them. Like, there were literally too many characters coming and going for me to, like, attach myself to anyone. You kind of have to be a leech sometimes as a reader and figure out, like, who am I attaching myself to? And usually that's easy because, you know, there's like a main character. And there are, like, obviously more dominant characters, but it felt like I was, like, kind of standing in the middle of the room spinning around and not totally sure who was who. That may have been an audiobook issue as well. I was basically on Storygraph reading through what other people were saying. And yeah, a lot of them were giving it kind of low star ratings, or they were DNFing, and they also talked about the slow plot. And then I had mentioned a lack of interiority, meaning I don't really know what's happening inside the heads of everybody. It's very much like pulled back. We're very, like, zoomed out, which again, I guess works for the genre and, like, what it is. But it was just, yeah, I guess I just wasn't really vibing with it. I said not enough Native American emphasis, which is how it seemed to be marketed. Another DNF, sadly, was Hot Wax by L Rio. If you have read this, please let me know what you thought. Yeah, it just did not grab me. Nothing about it. I mean, the writing is decent. Nothing about the story. Nothing about, I don't remember how deep I got into it. Maybe only like 20%. But I was listening and I was listening and I was listening, and I was like waiting and waiting and waiting for something to happen, or for something to, like, pull me in. And unfortunately, nothing did. And I felt like this was almost like the opposite of, what was that one that she had recently? Night Shift. That was her most recent one, the novella. And I felt like we all kind of collectively, well, I shouldn't speak for the entire book community, but what I was generally seeing in reviews and online was that it was too quick. It was too short. It was too conveniently wrapped up. It felt like maybe it was supposed to be a novel, and then she, you know, had to kind of cut it off at the knees in order to just publish something. And so she just, like, wrapped it up real fast and gave us a novella, like packaged it as a novella instead. And I feel like the quickness of that, like, Hot Wax would have benefited from. There wasn't anything about it that grabbed me. I think this was definitely one I was reading just because it was L Rio, and we all loved If We Were Villains so much. And so I just kind of wanted to be a loyal reader. But I will be honest, nothing about the synopsis actually interested me. It was just me wanting to read her next book kind of situation. And the book was just very much not for me. However, if you found it to be really entertaining and maybe it picks up speed a little bit, or something crazy happens, let me know, and maybe I will continue it at some point in the near future. Next one was one that I absolutely loved. If you are not into the macabre, you will not like this. So I don't really recommend it if you don't want to read about dead bodies and corpses and how they're taken care of. But Smoke Gets in Your Eyes by Doughty. This has been on my list for a long, long time. You maybe have already read it. I know I'm very, very late to the game. That just seems to be the case. Because of my Reading Around the World challenge, I have been, like, literally everything right here, almost everything right here is for that challenge. And so it's just really pushed back on, like, the hype books that we see online. It pushes back, like, sometimes by years, when I can actually get to those books that are, you know, more popular. I absolutely loved this. Basically, it's like a memoir, but also feels kind of like a day in the life of, like, an undertaker, like a funeral worker. So the author takes us kind of behind the curtain of what a mortician's day looks like. Sometimes that means going out and retrieving the body from a hospital. Most of the time it's in a hospital, she said. Sometimes from the home, which that does not happen as often as it used to. And there were lots of details regarding how a body goes from a corpse to either ash, if it's cremated, or becoming presentable at like an open casket service, and all the things that they do. Like the entire process. Yes, I thought it was really interesting how like detailed she goes into it, because you just don't hear about that really ever, unless you seek it out. And then she also went into other cultures around the world and how they deal with death, and how, it's like easy to judge other cultures when we just don't know. Like some cultures like leaving the body out for like the crows and the carrion to just like pick apart, and how that seems like totally savage to us as Americans, or anybody in the first world, but how that's like actually a really like spiritual, it's a way for them to like get closure, and it's seen as like this, total like circle of life kind of thing. It was just so interesting to read about what like other cultures around the world do, and just ponder that for a few minutes. It was very interesting read on the way to work, because it is quite dark. So, fair warning, it's gory, but it's informative, it's funny, like she really brings levity to it. I was very surprised at how many times I kind of like exhaled through my nose. Like it wasn't like ha funny, but there were a lot of times where I would like make noises. Excellent memoir for those with a taste for the macabre. It's something Wednesday Addams would read to herself as a bedtime story. That was my last little note to myself. So if you have a little inner Wednesday Addams, as I feel like I do, then you will like smoke gets in your eyes. Then another one that was, I don't know, I'm kind of on the fence about it. Not spectacular, not horrible, just maybe not my cup of tea. I read Schwab, finally. V.E. Schwab for the first time in my life. So any huge V.E. Schwab fans, maybe plug your ears like just for the next like 2 minutes. Well, no, don't do that. Give me recommendations. What's your favorite V.E. Schwab? And put it in the comments, because I do need recommendations. If I'm going to continue with her, I would really like to, but I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I just wasn't impressed. It was one of those ones, again, I was listening to the audiobook on 2x speed, just trying to kind of like get myself through it. The chapters were really quick and short, and it jumps between time, so it was holding my interest enough to not DNF it, but we follow a woman named Addie throughout the centuries, as she makes a deal with Luke, aka Lucifer. So she's like sold her soul to live forever, but nobody can remember her. So she can't have like meaningful relationships. Basically, that's the whole thing. So the price of a life of total freedom and non-attachment is what she asked for, but nobody can remember her. So very sad indeed. There were a lot of repeated phrases in here that I was not totally sure if maybe V.E. Schwab's editor just did not catch, or they were supposed to be there for like dramatic effect, but they weren't really like important phrases. I don't know. There was just weird little odd things that I was picking up on. I don't know if it was like things slipped through the editing process, because she's been such a prolific author for quite a while now, so I don't know if it's like kind of like with other authors, I won't name names, who have just written such insanely popular series, like something like ACOTAR, the later books, like, and series that come out later in that author's career just get to be so long, 700, 800, 900 pages, because basically the editors just stop editing, because they know that readers will eat it up, and so the books don't really, in my opinion, don't really get edited. I mean, they get read and they get edited, like line edited, but nothing gets cut. So I feel like books they tend to feel overlong, because those authors get away with things that like a debut author would not, in my opinion. My very inconsequential, I don't know what I'm talking about opinion. I thought maybe it was like, maybe the present is supposed to be recalling the past. Like it's supposed to be like, we're just seeing the way that her brain works, because we all have phrases that we repeat and like things that we say. So maybe it's just supposed to be like that. I don't know. I was kind of confused. Like, why are we saying these same like words over and over? I did feel like the plot was very meandering. There was not a lot holding my attention. It's literally the story of a woman surviving through time as people constantly forget her, except then one man can remember her. And that's kind of the thing that like changes the story up a little bit. Basically, it's supposed to raise questions like, what does it mean to really know someone? Does it change who you are when everyone you know and who knew you is now dead? What role does memory play in love and relationships? What does it mean to live for centuries? I felt like those were all the questions that we were supposed to be pondering. And I was, as I was reading, but just like as a story, I only read it a couple weeks ago and don't really remember a lot of the details. Didn't feel like the romance was like anything to write home about. It is a book, ironically, that I think I will soon forget. Sorry, Addie. I'm so sorry. So, leave your actual good V.E. Schwab Rex below, please, because I would like to continue with her work. Next up was Girl Dinner by Olivie Blake. It's just something about my brain and satire they don't like each other. It just doesn't like mesh well. I don't know. And I did not realize this was satire until like halfway through-ish. I was like, surely she's not being serious. This cannot be what this book is about. She does confirm in the acknowledgments that it is satire. So I am letting you know that ahead of time in case you are like me and you like would have probably preferred to skip this one, knowing that that's what it is. So, Girl Dinner. Dual POV. We have two narrators. Sloane is a professor. She's trying to do the girl boss thing. She's trying to have it all. She's trying to be a mom to a toddler, but also have like an insanely successful career at the college that she works at. So she's basically going through the rhythms of like marriage, motherhood, trying to have it all. Nina, I believe, is a student, and she just wants to rush a sorority. So we have two women at the same school, but in very different like places in life and with very different priorities. And oh my gosh, the amount of political talk and dialogue where they're just talking about feminism and girl bossing and down with the patriarchy and all of this like political rhetoric that we have heard for years and years and years and had it like hit over our heads for so many years now. That's what this book is. And I was like very done with it really early on. So I was like, I'm gonna keep trucking along, but I really hope that this is satire. And then luckily she does confirm, like I said, in the acknowledgments that it is. There's a lot of hate towards the sort of trad wife image in this, which feels kind of ironic because the characters claim to be so forward thinking. And so to spew such vitriol at a woman, there's a character. She's like the influencer, does TikTok, does all the, and it's all like trad wife, like Ballerina Farm-esque type character. And they hate her. Like Nina and all her little sorority girls, they're all just gossips. They're very vapid. So the dialogue was a little bit rough to read because it's like they're just like they're not saying anything really, you know? It's like they're just kind of mean girls. Like their commentary on womanhood was not, I didn't find any like value in reading it. Cannibalism is like how it is marketed. I was really hoping for a lot of cannibalism. Like what's the one? Tender is the flesh. It's here somewhere. Love it. Love cannibalism. So the cannibalism like storyline, it's sort of hinted at. Doesn't come in until the 60% mark. Very disappointing. And you guys, again, give me recommendations from this author that you think are better, because I have read better from her before. It was a Taylor Jenkins Reid book. I loved Daisy Jones. There's another one by her that I really liked. The one I'm referring to is Atmosphere, which claims to be NASA outer space kind of story in terms of the setting. It takes place in the 80s. It kind of jumps back and forth between like 1984, which is supposed to be like present day, and then like the previous years, like 1980 and 81. And it does say literally on the front cover, a love story. So we know it's a romance. I was pretty disappointed. There's not a lot of interesting space things happening. I was hoping we would spend more time actually in space, and that unfortunately is not what this one focuses on. There is one one opening scene that's very much like your typical sci-fi thriller, and it's really fast-paced, and basically there's an issue, they're in outer space, and so I was expecting a little bit more of like the actual outer space astronaut to play more of a part in the story. The romance was like hinted at. It wasn't until like the 50% mark until we even see anything happen on the page. I didn't really feel like there was a lot of chemistry between these two particular characters. It wasn't, you know, a love story that I wanted to like fight for. Reading books like Outlander, kind of really high caliber, like high quality books, kind of ruin books that aren't written as well. And so it's just a lot of dialogue about like the relationships between all the characters, obviously some about like science, contemplating like big ideas about the universe and God and where we come from and all this, but not in a way that I felt like was very actually thought-provoking. It has such a great setup and such a great beginning, and then it just completely spiraled down the toilet from there, unfortunately, for me. Thank you guys for watching, and one of the next videos here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing a bullet journal flip through, 2025 bullet journal flip through, and I'll show you my new one, which I'm so excited for. I've already done some spreads for the beginning of 2026, like best books of 2025. So excited to see everybody's best of, 2025 in review book videos. So I will see you then.